If there's one boat that exemplifies the spirit of American boat design, it's the Catboat. They're so simple, and they're strong, they're seaworthy, they're trustworthy, and they're beautiful. Catboats will always be an example of the kind of boats people trust and love.
I just feel that catboating is, today anyways, with the replication and fiberglass and the saving of the old wooden ones, is just keeping an old art form alive.
Well, I guess perhaps there is a lot of catboats that have already had 9 lives, and some are still working on 9, but the way she keeps going year after year, she must at least have 9 lives, if not more.
The tall ships of the last great age of sail are deeply etched in American memory. But the picture is not complete without the stout hulls and simple rigs of the workboats. To the ordinary people who use them to fish, carry cargo, and enjoy the pleasures of sailing, these little vessels were every bit as important as the famous clippers and windjammers. When black smoke from steamships began replacing white canvas against the sky, the fate of many a great sailing ship was sealed. As the 20th century dawned, their humble cousins, the workboats, seemed destined to become pale ghosts in old prints and faded photographs. February 1992. A gathering of sailors and boat builders in Newport, Rhode Island, has all the trappings of a yacht club meeting. But the conversations here are not about regattas, high-tech boats, or anything like a yacht. It is the Catboat, a small working vessel of the 19th century that brings this crowd together, here and on the water, year after year.
The hull is very similar to a tug, actually.
A tugboat captain taking busman's holidays on a fiberglass catboat. A doctor painstakingly restoring an old wooden cat in his driveway. A painter whose catboat canvases fetch high prices in Boston galleries, translating his vision of a classic racing cat into fiberglass, wood, and bronze. And a family with 3 generations gathering each summer to enjoy and preserve a cat they found wrecked on a beach in 1946.
Insurance man said, well, it'll never sail again, it's just all wrecked. But this fellow came down and he said, there's nothing the matter with that, we can't fix. So I said, will you help me fix it? And he said, yes.
What is the Catboat that it inspires such devotion and enthusiasm today? With most things from its heyday long gone, what has given the Catboat its 9 lives?
The catboat is a boat which is half as wide as it is long, is generally about 2-foot draft, centerboard. The other unique feature is its mast is stepped right up in the bows.
The traditional Cape Cod catboat is a big beamy boat with a gaff sail hung on a very sturdy tree trunk of the mast and a big barn door rudder, and has an amazing ability to run away from other boats.
It's a very beamy, comfortable, stable boat that is great to bring kids onto and up in, and which is what we did with Peter and Mary, who are our children, who are adults now and still like to sail with us.
Marvelous boat for kids, and they're good for old guys like myself.
It's a pretty straightforward, basic boat. There's nothing fancy about it, nothing high-tech, certainly. It's a comfortable boat that'll take you any place you want to go within reason. Not designed for offshore work, but certainly handles Buzzards Bay and Vineyard Sound quite well.
It's just like sailing in your living room. It's just so comfortable. You feel like you're on an armchair or something.
They're very endearing and have a certain romantic quality about them that's hard to describe.
As I say, I spent all my life in catboats, large and small, with my family, and I thought every boat was a catboat, and it surprised me to find there were others.
Wherever coastal waters are shallow in North America, catboats and vessels like them can be found. The classic catboat was originally native to the northeast coast between Cape May, New Jersey, and Cape Ann, Massachusetts. Each line in its functional but graceful design reflects challenges and opportunities met in the shoals and shallow bays of this region. Every American schoolchild knows that Mayflower brought the Pilgrims to New England. All but forgotten is a workboat called a shallop that helped the Pilgrims survive their first hard years. The thick woods of this region would take a long time to clear for farming, so early settlers turned to the sea for food and a means to trade with Native American Indians. Among the first messages they sent back to Europe were requests for experienced boat builders. The building of small boats has always been more or less a cottage industry. In early America, as in Europe, small workboats were usually built by lone craftsmen, using tools and methods passed down through their families without formal plans or written manuals. Uniquely American boat designs developed gradually as builders modified proven types to meet local conditions and current needs. Some people believe that the catboat grew from Dutch ancestry in New York. Some see predecessors in vessels like the point boats of Narragansett Bay. The only certainty in the early history of the catboat is that it evolved to meet the needs of fishermen. The abundance of marine life on the northeast coast brought European fishermen here long before the first settlers arrived. Until the late 18th century, most of the fish caught in these waters was salted and dried on desolate offshore islands and shipped to Europe. On the coast, rivers and shallow bays offered plentiful supplements to a farmer's diet, so settlers had little need to venture offshore, nor to build special boats for fishing. As American cities grew in the 19th century, new breeds of fishermen and fishing craft were born. To fill the stalls of urban markets, merchants began buying fish in bulk up and down the coast. In seaside towns and villages, enterprising individuals saw the opportunity to make a living by fishing near their homes year-round. To do this well, they needed the right kind of boat.
The fishermen in the 1800s, somebody who was working out of a harbor on a daily basis, were looking for a stable platform from which to work, something that didn't tip when they were standing on the edge pulling up a lobster pot or raking the bottom for scallops, and something that was shoal enough to suit the bottom in their harbor, and something that was also fast enough so they could get from the fishing grounds back to harbor before the next guy.
To live well, an independent fisherman of the 19th century needed to pursue different kinds of fish in different seasons, under all kinds of conditions. Each feature of the catboat, as we know it today, played a part in the making of a versatile fishing vessel. To create a stable fishing platform, builders gave the catboat a wide beam, making its width almost half its length. A large cockpit provided ample space for fish, traps, and other gear. For simple, efficient use of wind power, a large single sail was rigged on a sturdy mast at the very bow. Often the sail was gaff-rigged, with an upper spar for rapid adjustments in changing winds. To allow a person to fish and sail alone, all the lines for controlling the sail were made accessible from the cockpit. Because the waters between Cape May and Cape Ann are rife with sandbars, shoals, and marshes, builders gave the catboat a shoal draft, the ability to sail in water as shallow as 2 feet deep. This was critical for shell fishing and getting in and out of shallow, undredged harbors. One drawback to a shoal draft hull, however, is a tendency to slip sideways on the water when sailing on the wind under a large spread of canvas. To compensate for this, many builders gave catboats big barn door rudders and retractable centerboards. Since ancient times, sailors have used leeboards and centerboards to help shoal draft vessels sail to windward. Raising and lowering a centerboard requires an opening in the bottom of a boat's hull, so most experiments with them were plagued by leaks. Americans of the 19th century perfected a watertight centerboard trunk, and the catboat was among the first vessels on which they demonstrated their success. As practical as the catboat's design seems today, it was not accepted immediately in the 19th century. Bill Crosby talks about the first catboat built in Osterville, Massachusetts.
Andrew Crosby had an idea of a boat that would be shallow draft and could be used in this area, and he started it. Well, sometime in the process, before it got finished, he passed away. And his two sons, my great-grandfather Horace and his brother Worthington, had the task of finishing it off. And this they did back in the middle 1800s, and produced the Little Eva. She was an open-deck cat, gaff rig, shallow draft, beamy, like many of the open catboats that we have today. But she was the first of a kind, and folks were pretty skeptical of her around until she got in the water and started to sail. And she turned up good performance, suited the job well, could sail over the flats easily because she was shallow and had a centerboard, no rudder hanging down to get aground, but quite successful.
With the success of boats like Little Eva, the basic catboat design spread up and down the coast, with each builder interpreting it in his own way. We may never know how this design got the name catboat, despite the obvious resemblance between these traditional portholes and cat's eyes.
People think it's mostly to make them look like a cat, but it has nothing to do with that. It actually was for structural purposes to let as much light into the cabin without damaging the strength of the side of the cabin, and that an oval shape would let in much more light and would run with the grain of the wood and not damage the strength of it very much at all.
Well, I think a catboat's called a catboat because they said they're quick as a cat.
Because it is high, it's quick like a kitten, which it is, and it's high-spirited, which it is. I think that's why they basically call them cats. There's all kinds of definition. I really don't know. There's some fellows that'll tell you one thing, and some fellows will tell you another.
It's just the stories that we've all heard. The Crosbys building over on the Cape, building their first boat, saying it's quick as a cat. That's the story I use. I mean, you know, who knows? One good story is as good as another, I guess.
In the latter half of the 19th century, the catboat was a well-respected symbol of the independent American fisherman. Then the spirit of the Industrial Revolution caught up with the fishing trade. Large specialized vessels with immigrant crews began harvesting the fishing grounds of the Northeast with massive nets and other new tools, depleting many a species and leaving slim pickings for a man and a boy in a catboat. To keep pace with changing times, independent fishermen supplemented the catboat's large sail with gasoline engines in the first years of the 20th century. The look of the working cat changed as owners reduced the size of sails and spars and eventually eliminated them. As the years passed, however, fishermen began replacing aging cats with more up-to-date powerboats. One exception was Vanity, a working cat owned by Oscar Pease of Martha's Vineyard. Like most catboat fishermen, Oscar grew up fishing at his father's side. Thomas Walker Pease had Vanity built in 1929 by Manuel Schwartz Roberts of Edgartown. She was originally equipped with a gasoline-powered one-lunger and later updated with a four-cylinder engine. For many decades, Vanity was a common sight in Vineyard Sound, rigged with a sail in summer for party cruises and stripped down in winter for scallop dredging. Eventually, she became Oscar's boat and his livelihood until the late 1980s, the last of the true working catboats. Like Vanity, most working cats did a variety of jobs throughout the year. In addition to carrying parties of city tourists and day fishermen, catboats often served as ferries and light cargo vessels. Many busy harbors maintained fleets of catboats to shuttle water, supplies, and passengers to ocean-going ships. With their stout hulls and roomy cockpits, catboats do not appear to be especially speedy craft. Ever versatile, however, the catboat lived one of its most dramatic lives in racing.
The catboat looks like a big, heavy boat, but she has a number of design characteristics that make her a lively boat, surprisingly fast under a lot of different conditions. She has the mast set way in the bow of the boat. This allows her to spread one single continuous sheet of sail, one continuous airfoil, which is going to be more efficient than having the same amount of sail area broken up into many different pieces. In addition, she carries no side shrouds. The sailor can let the boom wing way out to the side of the boat, up to 90 degrees out to the side of the boat, and expose the maximum amount of sail area when she's off the wind. Below the water, she's got very little wetted surface area. Not a lot of drag there. In addition, she has a centerboard which can be raised when sailing off the wind, sort of like pulling up her skirts and letting her run. She'll be at her best going to windward in flat water, but she's a rugged, capable boat. And under conditions of boisterous wind and following sea, she'll beat almost anything around. She'll beat boats that are much sleeker looking.
Catboat racing began with fishermen competing to get catches to market. This led to working-class competitions, like the Toms River Cup Race of New Jersey's Barnegat Bay. Organized in 1871, it is the nation's oldest small boat race still run today. The lively, egalitarian spirit of catboat racing caught the attention of yachtsmen like Edward Burgess. This designer of 3 America's Cup defenders began racing catboats with friends at college in Boston during the 1860s. High society sailors in custom racing yachts were often shocked to be outpaced by Burgess and his cronies, sailing what were commonly known as fishing boats. Before long, the basic catboat design was being modified for racing. In 1889, Harbinger, a racing cat designed by C.C. Hanley, beat 2 fast cutters by 20 minutes on a boat-for-boat basis during a celebrated race off Marblehead. Almost overnight, catboats became the rage in the yachting circles of Boston, and especially New York. Racing was serious business in New York Harbor and Long Island Sound, where many fierce competitions had been seen between vessels called sandbaggers because of the ballast their large crews shifted from rail to rail for extra stability and speed. With the coming of catboat racers, some sandbaggers were adapted with a second mast step in the bow to allow them to be raced as sloops one day and as catboats the next. In the 1890s, members of New York's Atlantic Yacht Club became so enthusiastic about catboats that they transplanted one of Cape Cod's famous Crosby boat builders, H. Manley Crosby, to the Brooklyn waterfront.
My grandfather, at the urging of some New York men, was offered the chance to go to New York. I guess he thought it over for a while, having a family started and all. Being young enough, he decided, yes, he'll go down to New York. So down they went to Brooklyn, where they had a good yard right on the East River. Started building quite a number of racing cats, some very odd-looking cats that we're not used to seeing today, stretched out with short water lines and overhangs, but very low freeboard and gaff rigs that were quite sizable, and they were quite fast boats, but could be a beast to handle under certain conditions.
The New York racers pushed the catboat to its limits and beyond for the sake of speed. On some catboats, the boom became so long that a chase boat was needed to manage the rig while sailing in and out of port. Not all racing cats, however, were the result of such reckless over-rigging. Innovative designers like C.C. Hanley brought elegance and sensible design as well as speed to new breeds of catboats. Hanley was one of America's greatest prodigies in nautical design. With no formal training, he began building catboats in Monument Beach on Cape Cod, with the sole purpose of winning race prize money.
Hanley was a piano case maker and a blacksmith, and he was good with his hands, and he also had a very good eye for form. As far as I know, never designed a working catboat. He was strictly taking the concept and making racing boats, boats that would go fast and win races, and he did whatever was necessary to do that.
Hanley was a famous rule of thumb builder of catboats. He had some famous ones, Elmira, Harbinger, Dartwell, Iris. All the big names of the day, Fanny Davenport, the actress, Bill Thompson, the governor of Illinois, had boats built by Hanley. He was a colorful guy, and he was, they say he was an equal of Nat Herreshoff. And he used to give Herreshoff fits because Hanley couldn't read a plan if you put a gun to his head. He designed everything by half models. He had such an intuitive sense of design and boating that he was pretty hard to beat.
Catboats have been part of many a young person's education, no more so than in the case of renowned naval architect Nat Herreshoff. Herreshoff showed his budding talent in 1859 when, at the tender age of 12, he designed a catboat named Sprite so that his older brother, John, who was blind, could learn to sail in a simple boat. Later displayed in Henry Ford's Museum of Americana, Sprite now resides in the Herreshoff Marine Museum of Bristol, Rhode Island, and is the oldest catboat in existence. Today, among the most admired of all catboats are those designed by Fenwick Williams. As an apprentice to Boston naval architect John Alden, Williams was fond of doodling catboats in his notebooks. He became a prolific designer of many kinds of vessels, but frequently returned to his early love of catboats.
Of all catboat designers, I think Fenwick Williams probably has done the best job of balancing all of the attributes of a catboat. Fenwick's catboats are fast, they're rugged, they're capable, they're extremely comfortable, and they're very pretty. Other designers have done one or more of those, but Fenwick brought them all together into one design.
Hanley, Herreshoff, Williams, and other designers, including Charles Whitholtz and Edson Schock, refined the traditional catboat with their personal styles. Most catboats, however, have always come from a more communal kind of design, conceived in casual conversations between craftsman and client. Innovation came well ballasted by tradition in plain boat yards like Manuel Swartz Roberts of Edgartown, Gill Smiths of Patchogue, Andersons of Wareham, and Finneys and Bigelows of Monument Beach. The one name that rings most clearly in catboat circles, however, Crosby, is not that of an individual designer, but of a clan of catboat builders. Between 1850 and 1920, the Crosby family of Osterville, Massachusetts, built an estimated 3,500 catboats, and there were few Crosby sons who did not hang out a shingle as a boat builder.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Here, three descendants, Bill, Brad, and Shirley Crosby, all boat builders themselves, gather in one of the original Crosby boat shops, now on the grounds of the Osterville Historical Society.
I can remember Percy Hall talking about being over on our side with a long rope across the harbor, trying to haul one out of the, trying to pull one. Yeah. That was Herbert Crosby's boat yard over here. And Charles Crosby's shop stood just about here. The upper floor came out on this upper level here, where this road is.
Bill Crosby recalls the catboat's heyday in Crosby Town.
They started in, 1700s, I guess, late 1700s, building packets and vessels that plied the coast and carried the produce and one thing or another. At one time, there was as many as 5 Crosby yards, all building catboats and others at separate locations around the harbor, ranging from Daniel and Ralph over on the island, Uncle Herbert with his sons right here at the foot of West Bay Road, Uncle Bill, Wilton Crosby, Charles Crosby, who built a lot of fine catboats, H. Manley Crosby, and then finally up till late days, the Crosby Yacht Building Company and the Chester Crosby Boat Yard. Up here, one of the older buildings my grandfather built in 1900. You can see the gable end of it right up here. And they built a lot of big boats there, as big as 75 feet. Uncle Bill's shop was just over here to the south of it, but they got together when they came home from New York and joined the two buildings together, and they built boats for each other. If one was busy, he'd build the boat for the other fellow, just to keep moving. So this building was built in 1900, and originally had a well in the floor that went right out through the building, just like that. And that's why they built boats, and was at that on the railway in that well, and built quite a few boats. I guess we had 30 men at the most in the yard working, and that cut off in the winter some. Some fellows would go south and work, but we kept most of the crew together for the following spring when boats had to be pulled out of storage and gotten ready for the summer. This was originally a drafting room here and had a nice table that's here now, and some drafting is still done on it, but a good many half models on the wall here representing boats that have been built. Now down the city, where the college boys were, paperwork and plans was all a part of building boats. Here, they were just a side to help the sailmaker get his layout. Most of it was done with half models. The man put his ideas into a model and tried to fit the owner's desires with that model. Then through what he had done in the past on other boats, it was all wrapped up into that boat to suit what the owner wanted. I think quite a lot was realized by experience, and with your hands and the ability to put your mind and your hands together to come out with some pretty nice boats. We're down here now below the hill in Crosby Town where the boats were built, and this boat belongs to the man that bought the Herbert Crosby Boatyard. And here she is, America's Cup winner, right here down in Crosby Town. Wouldn't she make a great catboat?
Being pragmatic Yankee craftsmen, the Crosbys moved on to other enterprises when the catboat's popularity began to fade. Bill and Brad built one of the last Crosby catboats, Francis, for a local man named Townie Horner in the late 1960s.
Well, having spent my life in Osterville, I thought Crosbys were the people that built catboats, and it was a very logical thing in my mind to go to the nearest spot and pick up all the tradition of the village. Well, we talked for a long time, and it started off with, oh, well, you're never going to want to build a catboat because it's going to be so expensive, and we haven't built any in a long time, and there was a lot of that kind of chatter. And then I think Billy, after a while, began to realize I was serious, and we started looking at plans.
I guess you always hear a lot of talk along the waterfront from that, and you take a lot of it with a grain of salt, but it didn't take long to realize that, well, it's a catboat, and by God, we ought to build another one, and here's a fellow from Osterville that wants to do it. And look at all the years that have gone by and all the catboats that come to this shore on this bay, and little did we know there'd be so many. It could have been otherwise, but I don't think it would have been any better.
While the Crosbys and others were gradually getting out of the catboat business, a family named Beetle gave new life to the catboat for a new generation. Best known for the longboats they supplied to New Bedford whalers, the Beetle family had been building catboats and other working craft since the early 19th century. In the 1920s, John Beetle wanted his children to learn sailing in a safe, manageable vessel. So he and his son Carl designed and built a small catboat, the Beetle Cat. Since then, the Beetle Boat Company, now part of Concordia Yachts, has built approximately 4,000 of these small catboats. Leo Telesmanic, an early employee, remembers his first years at the Beetle shop.
I learnt my trade with Charlie Beetle and his son-in-law, John Bauman. And after building quite a few of the Beetles, I one day asked Charlie Beetle, I said, Charlie Beetle, I said, Mr. Beetle, I said, how long are we going to keep building these Beetle Cats? When are we going to start building some other boats? Charlie Beetle looked at me and he said, he used to call me Skippy. He said, Skippy, as long as people keep getting married, and they got married in them days, and keep having children, he says, you'll be building Beetle Cats. And in 1936, after they passed away, I was put in charge by John Beetle's daughter, Ruth Beetle, who was a school teacher and who took care of running the business. So here we are here today. They're still building Beetle Cats. I continued to build Beetle Cats, even after I retired in '83, helping Charlie, who is running the shop now.
One of the things that's great about the Beetle Cat is that you can use it to teach. It very much lends itself to teaching all sorts of seamanship and skills which are on a broader scale than just how to make a boat go fast.
For beginner learners, it's very stable. It's not going to throw any surprises at you. It's nice and easy on the first-time learners.
In a Labor Day race on Vineyard Sound, young members of the Falmouth Yacht Club carry on the legacy of the boats John Beetle built for his children as they put a summer's lessons to the test. Farther up the coast, catboats are part of another kind of education for people of all ages.
Here at the landing school in Kennebunkport, we have built something like 13 or 14 different catboats. And the reason we build catboats is that they are an excellent educational vehicle for the students to learn how to build boats on. They have all the complexities of a larger boat, and yet they're small enough and compact enough for us to do in a school year. The other thing is that we have become avid catboat enthusiasts, and we love them. They're so much fun to build, but also to see in the water, and there are a lot of admirers of catboats here at the school. When we started the school year, we knew that we were going to be building a small cruising boat, and we didn't know what that boat should be, and it took maybe all of 15 seconds to decide on an 18-foot catboat. When we build a boat on speculation, we like it to be a catboat because they always find homes. The neat thing is that once the students go through this process, they can go out into the field, into the industry, and get jobs building the type of boats that they have not even built here. When the students understand the thought process that goes into building one of these boats, they can extrapolate and apply it to different projects, other projects. What I mean by this is that we have something like 7 graduates who have been building the America Cup boats.
The landing school and the Concordia Beetle Cat shop are among the few places where you can still breathe in the steam and wood-fragrant atmosphere of a traditional catboat yard. In other boat yards, a different odor marks yet another new life for the catboat.
Fiberglass saved the catboat from extinction. I'm going to get shot by some of the old guard on that one, but I think that if you look at even at the membership of the Catboat Association, there's 1,500 members out there. Probably 2/3 to 3/4 of them own fiberglass boats. The wooden boats were dying out in the 60s, in the early 60s and subsequently, and that's one reason why the Catboat Association was founded, I think, is to really preserve something that they thought might be dying. Marshall Marine was started in 1962 by Breckenridge Marshall. Breck came along with the Sanderling and turned the catboats around. It was a boat that was pleasing to the eye. It was a boat that was relatively inexpensive, made out of fiberglass. It was a permanent boat. I mean, my God, you know, we're 30 years old. We've got 700 boats out there, and they're all sailing as far as I know. We are the builders of the 15.5-foot Sandpiper, the 18-foot Sanderling, and the Marshall 22-foot auxiliary catboat. We've built well over 1,200 catboats in all 3 sizes, with 700 of them just being in the Sanderling alone.
Like the gasoline engine, fiberglass brought a departure from tradition for catboats, but helped assure their survival in the 20th century. Because it is easier to maintain and more resistant to weathering than wood, fiberglass also helped spread the catboat's popularity as a pleasure boat and brought catboat building back to places where it died out many years earlier.
There's a myth that the catboat is purely a New England type boat. But here in Long Island and New York, we've had catboat builders dating back to the 1850s. Menga Boat Works is carrying on this great tradition of catboat builders on Long Island. Menga Boat Works was started in 1976, building traditional skipjacks. In 1981, we started to build catboats. Now it's all the boats we build. We now build a 15, a 19, and a 23-foot catboat, and we're very happy with building catboats. We kind of think that we build a wooden boat out of fiberglass. We use bronze hardware, teak trim, varnished ash wainscoting in the cabin. We make the boat look like a wooden boat without all the problems of a wooden boat. We build our own molds to save a great deal of money because molds are expensive, but mainly because of the fact that we know what we need in a mold. If we lose the ability to make molds, then we lose the ability to make improvements. We've been leading in fiberglass technology and been aware of what the latest technology is for the entire time that we're building these old traditional catboats.
My name's Tony Davis, and I'm the owner of Aries Pond Boatyard in South Orleans, Massachusetts. And we build the Aries Pond catboat, 14, and we also build a 12-footer. Aries Pond catboat is built mostly by hand, but due to the modern abilities to lay up hulls with fiberglass, we've taken advantage of that, and in 1970 went from a wooden boat to a fiberglass hull laid up and pulled off the wooden hull. Our boats are unique in that for 14 feet you can sail it by yourself, or you can sail with as many as 4 people comfortably. This boat is easy to handle for a young family learning to sail, to elderly people, retired people who just want a leisurely afternoon sail. And it's a very enjoyable, relaxed sailing feeling.
Today, fiberglass is used not only for large-scale production of catboats, but also to shape custom reproductions of classic cats. The best of both traditional and modern construction methods come together in this variation on a C.C. Hanley racer, built for marine artist Michael Caine. Caine's canvases cover many subjects, but catboats have a special place in his work.
I've always had an irrational attraction to catboats since I was a boy, and I just like them. I like how they look, and I like how they sail, and certain angles they can be very homely, and certain angles they can be very lovely. And even sometimes the homely ones have a certain attraction to them. Most of the American landscape and marine painters dabbled in painting catboats. Currier and Ives has some lithographs of catboats going back to the 1840s and 50s. Homer did, well, Breezing Up, everybody knows Breezing Up by Homer, a little catboat, a Cape Cod type cat. He did the tiller wrong, and the tiller goes over the traveler instead of under it. It really bothers me in the painting. I don't think Homer really was a sailor, he was more of an artist. But it doesn't diminish the impact of the subject. It's a great, great painting. But I strive to be a little more accurate technically. The painting I'm working on now is 24 by 36 inches. It's oil on linen, and it's a depiction of my catboat, Trick or Treat. It's a boat I designed, redesigned several years ago, and just recently had it completed. It's an antique design by C.C. Hanley from Monument Beach in Quincy. This boat here is taken from the lines of Elmira, basically, which was a winner in the Class D Quincy cats consistently. The lines are Hanley's lines and adapted by myself for modern day use. The hull's Airex and fiberglass. The rest of the boat is wood, including the spars. All the things on this boat are handmade, custom made, and completely thought out from square one. There's nobody to consult with. There's nobody that knows that you can call about these kind of things. So you kind of have to wing it. You have to read it and intuit it and interpret it.
For some people, there is just no substitute for a traditional old wooden catboat. In many a garage, backyard, or driveway, old cats are being restored by people like Philip and Isabel Carling of Hingham, Massachusetts, working on a Fenwick Williams cat named Tabby.
The boat was beautifully constructed, but the problem that we got into a few years ago relates to the fact that one of the decisions that was made in building the boat was to use iron fastenings, iron nails. Yeah, you can see there's the bright metal left there. There was about a little bit less than the 1/16 of an inch left on this nail. After 40 years, these iron nails had deteriorated to the degree that they weren't holding the planking. They were really more or less almost like dust. This is the remains of the nail heads from the plankings back here. I decided to replace them with these pegs called trunnels. The concept and the use of trunnels dates back a few thousand years. They were used in Viking boats. They have a split cut into them, and then they're wedged as a pin between the frame and the planking to hold the planking in. What we're doing here is basically fighting nature's course and reconstructing the boat piece by piece as time goes on. And if in the future somebody cares enough about this boat to keep doing it, the boat, just like the Constitution, will essentially be ageless because it's replaced all the time.
Some of the most extensive work in catboat preservation is being carried out at Mystic Seaport in Connecticut, an open-air museum dedicated to American maritime history. In the late 19th century, the whale ship Charles W. Morgan was photographed with 2 catboats docked nearby. Today, the Morgan resides at Mystic, and a reconstructed Crosby cat named Breck Marshall sails at her side. One of several catboats in Mystic's collection, the Marshall was built by the museum staff in 1987, with help from the last generation of Crosby catboat builders, using strictly 19th century tools and techniques in this traditional boat shop at the seaport. Mystic also houses an extensive collection of catboat plans, half models, and archives. Happily, the catboat is much more than a museum piece today. This photograph of President Grover Cleveland enjoying a lazy sail near his summer home in Monument Beach typifies the catboat's latest incarnation as a cruising vessel. The simplicity and roomy comforts of the catboat, along with the advent of fiberglass cats in the 1960s, have led to a true catboat renaissance as more and more families take to the water each summer in catboats. The scope of this renaissance is reflected in the growth of the Catboat Association.
There's a group of dry-hide catboat sailors in the late 50s and early 60s, including John and Pinky Levins and Paul and Molly Birdsall, that used to meet periodically throughout the summer along the coast of New England and Long Island Sound for catboat races often sponsored by a local yacht club. At one race at Duck Island, Connecticut in August 1962, they were sitting around after the race and decided that perhaps an organization would be a good thing to have an annual meeting, publish an occasional bulletin where they could disseminate information on catboats and give the results of previous races and offer cats for sale. The group decided that it would be an informal organization, no officers, just a corresponding secretary or two.
The Catboat Association has more than 1,500 member families. At an annual meeting in Newport, Rhode Island, members gather to plan summer events, shop for boats and services, attend seminars, lectures, and awards presentations, and share information, experience, and tall tales. Association members come from across the United States and overseas. The catboat has had an international following since 1859, when an English nobleman launched a New Jersey catboat named Una in London's Hyde Park.
Most often the hull would be painted a solid color.
Today at Bigelow's Boat Shop on Cape Cod, Frank Cassidy of the Catboat Association plays host to an overseas visitor.
My name is Enrico. I come from Venice, Italy, and I'm here mostly because of catboats. I'm interested in catboat because I think it's a sort of boat ideal for our sea. Our sailing area is Adriatic Sea, and it runs between Italy and Yugoslavia. And we have a lot of shallow water, sandy harbors. And so here I'm looking about catboats for sale. And if I'm not able to get a catboat here, I would like to get plans to build such a boat in Italy as soon as possible.
The most important activities of the Catboat Association happen on the water. At an annual rendezvous in Pedenara, Massachusetts, the catboat lives another day in its many lives. As old-timers and newcomers, and catboats of wood and fiberglass come together to make the waterfront resemble a coastal village of a century ago.
When catboat people get together,
All heirs come down, everybody's just one big family. They have a common bond, the catboat.
The catboat itself is unique in every way. And the people that understand the catboat seem to have a different time clock in their head. They march to the beat of a different drummer.
Well, they say that we're an interesting breed. We love our boats. We take care of our boats. Most of us do all of the work on the boats ourselves. I guess we're kind of traditionalists. We like that aspect of it. And we're a friendly group of people. You can hail catboats all from anywhere you see them, and there's always a friendly wave. There's always a friendly wave.
They're the most regular people I have ever met, the catboat people. They're just, I think they're wonderful people, and they come from a very wide cross-section of life. The thing that amazes me is that some of these people have had these boats 30 and 40 years. It's unparalleled. It's amazing to me. Usually the yacht owners are fickle and they always want to change. And they're the most devoted people. They're devoted to this Yankee-type simplicity of this catboat.
Ultimately, it is a combination of love and pragmatism that has given the catboat 9 lives. Although they're cherished as character boats, catboats are still being built and used today because of their characteristics: simplicity, ruggedness, comfort, and the versatility to be sailed, anchored, or beached just about anywhere. Originally designed to let fishermen be self-reliant, these features continue to appeal to sailors with an independent spirit. As catboats sail into the 21st century, they offer simple, old-fashioned pleasures and a reminder that good ideas endure.
Clippers plow the angry seas and schooners chase the whale, but catboats rule the bar and shoal where great ships fear to sail. From Gloucester down to Osterville, New Jersey to Cape Cod, from cedar, pine, and oak and iron, cats beat in every yard. They build cats strong in Crosby Town, and Hanley's cats are fast. From spar to sail and stem to rail, these cats are made to last. It's one short life we're given, but our children will survive to sail the cat and bring her back, for the catboat has 9 lives. At dawn we dredge the scarlet beds that lie along the Sound. By noon our catch in bulk or batch is sold in Edgartown. By afternoon we're out again with hooks and nets and gear, with a man to mind the traps and lines and a boy astern to steer. At other times we carry folks and goods from place to place. To a lonely lighthouse keeper's wife bring calicoes and lace. And never will a flat or shoal keep us from getting through. With a shallow draft and a breeze abaft, we'll skim the morning dew. Unto the beach when day is done, we gaily drive the prow. No need to wait to reach a glade, nor launch a skiff and row. Then children on the sand will play and sing to pass the time, while older folks break out the jokes with beer and bread and wine. And 100 years from now I say these shores will see the same, For cats live on through storm and calm and gale and hurricane. And it's one short life we're given, but our children will survive to sail the cat and bring